Hello, individual. Joey Tuason here. Thank you for stopping by. This is the Individual Collective podcast where we sit down with people who utilize what makes them unique to create value for others. Today, we are joined by a mural artist from the Philippines who has piqued the interest of thousands of locals who have spotted his work both around the metro and online. He's also piqued the interest of international brands such as PayPal, Shake Shack, and Heineken, who have all commissioned him. In this episode, we tackle a barrage of topics like his experience working in the Filipino Creative Class, how NFTs have changed the art scene forever, facing resistance as an artist, the history of mural art, and of course, how Quinten Tarantino and Stan Lee have influenced his personal style. Jappy shares a lot of valuable insights, especially for people working in the creative and freelance economy, and I hope you enjoyed the show as much as I did. Please welcome Jappy Agoncillo. Jappy, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, Joey. Hey. Good to be here, man.
So I just want to mention, I know you don't like compliments, so I'll make this quick. But you have utilized your unique blend of style, your background in law, your skill of illustrating and murals to create value for people, whether it be an individual catching a glimpse of your art on the street, to big corporations that commission you for their brands. So thank you for doing your part in making Manila a little bit more pleasant to the eye, and I'm really excited to have you on tonight.
Oh, thank you. I try. I don't know about the truthfulness of all that, but I really do try my best. That's what I want for the industry. That's what I want for the community. I just want to do my part.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, as individuals, we can only sort of focus on what is in our control. So it seems that you have that mindset coming in. So I mean, you don't want to change the whole art world or the art scene. Like you just want to focus on the immediate impact that you can create. So
we do what we can, and that's the best we can do. Really.
So I wanted to start off with the general art scene, and just to give the audience a little bit more context of what you do. So just to give the audience a little bit more information, Jappy is a famous mural artist here in the Philippines.
Yeah, say famous.
Very, very well-skilled, and he knows what he's doing. In fact, I went to his exhibit, his most recent exhibit here in Space Encounters. It was actually walking distance from my place. So I thought, perfect opportunity. I've seen your work in the flesh in public areas, but to actually see your work as a project of yours that you did separately from brand commissions, it was really awesome to see your work in the flesh. And it's very colorful, very powerful, very loud too.
Yeah, that's what I like.
Yeah, so I wanted to start off first with what do you think is the role of public art, such as murals, in cities?
Well, it's a way to get art out to viewers and audiences that I think wouldn't have like access to the more private shows or don't have the cultural background. I don't want to say anything that might sound like offensive, but something like it just isn't within them to go to art shows.
Mm-hmm.
It's not within them to seek that out, or they might feel like some things could be too fancy or pretentious or anything to them. But it's a good way to get art out into the public eye in a way that can be consumed by everyone, in whichever way they want it to. You know how, like art in galleries are curated. Some galleries are fancier than others. Some have contemporary art. Some have extremely fine art. And so their audiences are also sort of curated to that kind of level. People who like contemporary art can go to contemporary art gallery, and vice versa with more abstract art or old style museum art. But with public art, the people who can see it could be just the average guy on the street, could be the average Grab driver can see it, as well as more refined individuals. Okay, that doesn't sound very good. But you know what I mean?
No, I get you, because art, there is that sort of stigma that art is only for the rich, or art is only reserved for the museums, reserved for the wealthy that can afford to buy them. But public art it seems like what you just mentioned, it gives
It's
that exposure.
it's open to everyone to see, and I didn't want to have the whole rich versus not rich conversation, but it doesn't have to be that just because I'm up here that I should go to art museums and that's the only people who can see art.
Mhm.
Art can be street art, public art can be consumed and viewed by as many different people as possible and can have their own take on it. And that's what I like the most about it.
And so when an individual, let's say, sees public art, um, public art in general, what do you think? Let's say in the modern times, um, how is that affecting cities, or what value does it bring to cities, in your opinion?
Well, in there are two ways to look at it. So, like in developing countries here, it does it does seem like public art really brings value to a certain community, or it could bring prestige to a certain community. Let's say BGC. Whenever someone mentions murals or big street art, and they ask me, "Oh, you do murals? Did you do something in BGC?" I'm like, "Oh, okay." So that's like the standard for your a street artist in the Philippines. Obviously, that's not the real case, but it's like it elevated BGC into that space
Hmm.
where it's a cultural hub now because of the street art murals. But it can also be kind of damaging to to communities that thrive. I'm not sure about here in the Philippines, but this conversation is being driven in places like New York and Brooklyn, where places like Bushwick or Williamsburg in Brooklyn are being gentrified because of the public art murals. Like big companies are seeing the value in big art, in big scale mural art. So they commission artists to do murals, and then they say, okay, this property is now more expensive, more valuable. This neighborhood is more valuable. We'll drive up the real estate prices, make rent more expensive, and it drives out certain communities from those places, and that's the negative effect of that, I think.
Hmm. And you're right. Like, it also does, I guess, contribute to the economic impact within that community
Oh
because,
yeah.
let's say, the they're very very famous walls all around New York and like Chicago. Like, there's that one block where sort of the entire block is kind of like a mural. There's pops of color on the street and from the buildings itself. There's murals there within this certain block in Chicago. So I think just having a place where it's nice to be in, it's beautiful,
Mhm.
it'll attract people to that place, and then all of a
Yeah.
sudden there's more spending that happens in that area. So
Yeah.
yeah, you're right. I think art in general is seen as something that it's hard to get paid for, and we'll talk about monetization later on. But you know, there is a lot of value in having creativity and having art be publicly
Mhm.
displayed in cities, and it's
Yeah.
fantastic to see that growing in the Philippines. I mean, you've been in this industry for basically, it's been a 5-year journey for you, man.
Around 5 years since I really began.
And
Um, yeah.
this notion of the creative class rising, you mentioned it in one of your talks in one of your Jappy Days live. And if you guys haven't checked it out, Jappy Days live is a nice 10 episode short series on giving talks about murals and giving talks about how to monetize your art, giving talks about dealing with clients. There's a whole lot of good stuff there, so please check that out. But what I wanted to ask you was this notion of the creative class rising. You mentioned that, for example, in the US, 34, well, I also did a little bit of research before, but
Mhm.
last time I checked, 34% of their population is making money being involved in the creative class. So they're producing something
Mhm.
new, whether it be in art or technology, and they're making a full time living out of that. Now, you look
Mhm.
at countries in Europe, and that number even goes a little bit higher, or even like in
Yeah.
Canada, certain cities, it goes even higher. In Luxembourg is the number one, 54%. So,
Mhm.
but in the Philippines, we don't measure that shit. Like,
Not yet.
we,
Not yet.
not yet. We don't
Yeah.
measure the economic impact of the creative industry within the Philippines, and that's hurting us because we tend to pair up the creative sector with the services sector, and
Oh.
that
Yep.
and because we don't measure the economic impact of the creative sector individually, the government doesn't know how much value is actually contributing to the society. So my question
Mhm.
is, like, what's it been like for you like this 5 year journey to be working in a country that doesn't even measure the economic impact of the value of creativity?
Well, okay. Well, I can't blame the government 100%, because, as a developing country, we have other priorities up on the list, of course, especially when it comes to economics and making money and having jobs. Priority is, of course, jobs that are more secure, right? Um, but yeah, in the 5 years, it's been quite a ride. Especially, I love seeing that it's been growing. It's definitely been growing. The kind of the freelancer economy of the country. When I was starting out, it was really tough to kind of explain to people what I was doing. Of course, there have already been muralists before me, great, amazing muralists before me, who have been doing it for much longer. But around the time I was starting out, it still hasn't been the age of of social media has only just kind of started rising
Hmm.
by that time. So art wasn't that widely viewed and widely accepted. So, this just people like, so what do you do? I'm like, oh, I paint murals. I'm like, what is that? Um, and it was hard to kind of explain how I made money through it. It was hard to kind of convince my family to trust me on, like, just trust me. I know what I'm doing. Just trust me. Because of course they're thinking in the old fashioned way that if it's not stable, it's scary. If
Hmm.
it's something we don't understand, it's scary. But nowadays, it's a little bit more accepted. I'd say it's a lot more accepted. So many people are getting into the freelance game,
Hmm.
especially now during pandemic. People have been learning a lot at home, and applying that to what they're making. So, from in the 5 years, in the very short 5 years, it's been a big change, especially with the dawn of social media. Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, plus this whole being at home, following your passion kind of trend, not
Hmm.
just being at home and learning, but there's a whole trend of following your passion is actually a good idea. And
Hmm.
so people are getting into it more. So there, I'm glad it's where it is now. It could be better, but I'm glad.
Yeah, I think the word passion has been thrown around a lot in the past couple of years, um, especially with all those YouTube videos. The inspiration. I mean, I was a victim to all the YouTube motivational videos before when I was into basketball. Like I would use it to
I still
pump
watch
me
them.
up.
They're still good.
Yeah,
sometimes
they're
you're
effective.
yeah, sometimes you're in the middle of a workout and you're just like, I need something cool, and you're like, The Rock motivation, and then it's just the Rock with orchestra music for like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So good.
Well, you mentioned something about motivation in your Jappy Days live session. You said inspiration is sort of knowing what you want to do, and motivation is the energy and sort of the drive to execute it. I sort of butchered your
Mhm.
quote, but can you add more to that? Because you also mentioned a quote after that, which I wouldn't say contradicts it, but adds, I think, more depth to it, where you quoted somebody where you said inspiration is for amateurs and the rest of us just
Oh,
show up
okay.
to work. Can you
Yeah.
expand on those two quotes for a second?
Well, I love the second one, because it wasn't me who said it. Anything I say, I don't really believe. The second one, inspiration for amateurs, the rest of us just go and show up to work. That was a quote by Chuck Close. He was a painter. He just passed away recently.
Oh.
He's an American painter. And the whole quote was, I forgot what the whole quote. It's just something like, inspiration for amateurs, the rest of us just go up to work. If you wait for, and now I'm butchering it. If you wait for inspiration to come, it never will.
Mm.
Um, and that really kind of motivates me a lot to just let go. Just be like, because when you're creative, whichever field you're in, thinking of ideas is the hardest, most painful part of the process. And you're gonna sit there and wait for inspiration, watch some videos like we did, or I still do.
Mm.
You're gonna watch videos, you're gonna go through pages and pages of Pinterest, scroll through Instagram saying, I'm looking for inspiration, or I'm not feeling the creative vibes right now, so I'm not gonna do anything. And that's just the wrong way to go about it. And I still catch myself, doing that, where I'm like laying in bed, looking through Instagram, like, oh, I
Mm.
need ideas, and I just catch myself thinking, wait a second, why don't you just start drawing something and it'll work itself
Yeah.
out? Why are you waiting? You're wasting so much time. So that was me, and still is me now. But that's the kind of the thesis behind that second quote, which is really, if you're not gonna start doing anything, nothing's really gonna happen. You can wait for inspiration all you want. It's not gonna come because you have to be working
Mm-hmm.
to find it. There.
Oh, that's great. And I just want to relate to that with a question about your mindset for a second, because you talked about sort of facing that resistance. Well, The War of Art, this book by Stephen Pressfield, it's a great
Yeah.
book. Not The Art of War by Sun Tzu, that's a different one.
Yeah,
But The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. Have you read that book?
I've read snippets of it. I've been meaning. It's on my list of a long list of books I mean to read but never do it.
No, it's okay. I
read
feel you,
snippets of
man.
it.
Like the
Yeah.
I have a pile here. I tend to just like get the idea of a
You
book
buy
and put it
books.
down.
I buy books and I'm like, I'll read it someday.
Yeah,
And it's still
exactly. Yeah, I have a few
there. It's
unopened.
plastic.
Yeah, in the plastic still, in the fully booked
Yeah.
plastic. But in this book of War of Art, he talks about he coined this term resistance, and it's basically this force that prevents you from doing that or creating that thing that you're supposed to create. So whether you're a writer to sit down and write, or a mural artist to go to find a wall or start sketching,
Yeah.
all those factors come into play, or all these thoughts come in, and he sort of lumps it up into one name and calls it resistance, so that you kind of have an enemy that you can tackle and sort of fight at and win that war, basically. So for you, what has your personal journey been like fighting resistance? And are you at a point where you're constantly conquering resistance?
You know, I laughed when you mentioned the book because I actually learned about it from a motivational video I was watching. It was Joe Rogan. But anyway, that does, you know, resistance is something you can never really conquer. Just knowing that, especially with in the creative field again, where work is never really done, you're always working on new things. It's always different. It's always this and that. Where you have to continuously remind yourself and continuously kind of push yourself to fight against it. Because resistance really is that just kind of like staring at a blank page and kind of pushing yourself to get started, but it's hard because what if the ideas aren't good? What if I draw something and it sucks? What if it'll take me a whole day and waste it? And that's the resistance, right? Like not getting started, not get going because you're afraid. And I still have that. I don't think it ever goes away. I don't think I'm at a point where I'm constantly conquering it, but I'm always constantly fighting it, and I'm always aware of it. I think that's more important than conquering it, is just to be aware that it's there and that you should be fighting. You should be pushing it back at it.
That's a great point. So do you feel like you've sort of just gotten better at acknowledging it and dealing with it and finding out how you maneuver yourself out of it or through it? That's how you sort of approach it, resistance right now.
Yeah, I'd say just you don't get better at it. You just get more aware. You just get you figure it out earlier. Like this is what it is. Sometimes you're just there, like I don't know what's wrong with me. What's wrong with me? Maybe I'm not inspired. I'm always like that. Like maybe I just suck. Maybe this is just terrible.
Maybe I shouldn't do this anymore.
Yeah, like I quit. I can't even think of anything. And then that's when it snaps in my head. Like no, that's the resistance. That's just fear kind of telling you can't do this. And then you're like, okay, I know what this is. Push past it. And then once you get started, the flow just keeps going from there.
That's a skill itself, like noticing and being aware of these things and being aware with how you talk to yourself, you know, because if you can get on your side, then things sort of become a little bit easier. Right. So
self-talk is a bit of a skill. Yeah. And you kind of have to always keep at it as well.
Self-negotiation too. Like, okay, you do this and then after you can have, you know, like it's mind tricks. You have to sort of trick your mind. But what you said earlier about just start writing or start sketching and then the ideas will come. Stephen Pressfield also talks about that in his book, and he calls it, I like how he always comes up with names, but he calls it the Muse. So the Muse is like this sort of being that as you're working, but only as you're working and as you're producing, then the ideas will start to flow and it will just naturally make itself throughout that process. Right. So
exactly. That's part of the quote. That's part of the inspiration for amateurs quote. inspiration or the ideas come to you, but they'll only come if you start working.
Yeah.
There's another similar quote where like idea inspiration doesn't exist, but it shows up. But it will show up, but it has to find you at work.
Yeah. That makes
Yeah.
sense. And it's great that you have that mindset. And we'll get back to your mindset in a bit, but I want to talk a little bit more about the general art scene. Because in one of your episodes, you talked about traditional mediums versus the digital mediums. And,
Yeah.
now the digital art has, as you mentioned, lowered the barrier to entry for a lot of people. And the amount of people who know how to use Canva is tremendously rising, right?
Yeah.
So do you think that this is good for the industry? Or do you think that it may encourage people to sort of stop at the baseline Canvas skills rather than moving on to more complex systems like Photoshop or an Illustrator?
Interesting. Well, it may. I think it doesn't have anything to do with the programs. It just has something to do with where they want to take it. Because of course, yeah, Canva exists, and some people be like, no, I'm good. Like I know how to use Canva. I'm good. But some people who want to push themselves to improve at it, be like, okay, I learned Canva. What's next? Okay, I want to try actually making stuff on Illustrator or Photoshop or any of that. So it's really about how the person wants to view their progression with with art, digital art. Um, it's not for everyone, but it just depends. Like for me, I used to be one of those guys like, oh, you know what? Illustrator is just I'm not gonna use it. I'm never gonna have to use it. Last year during pandemic, I told myself no, I have to learn it. So I used to be one of those guys that just stopped at the where I was comfortable,
Mm.
and I thought no, 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 you gotta improve. You have to. Where's the next logical step? Okay, using a harder program and mastering it. So that's what I did. I haven't mastered it. I'm just saying, but like I'm trying to.
So Canva, like systems like Canva, sort of easy to use drop and drag design systems, kind of get your feet wet. For someone who's
Yeah.
not in the art scene, get your feet wet, and then if it's up to you, it's up to you at that point if you want to expound or sort of progress to a more complicated platform. But I think what's good about the rise of things like Canva and sort of easy to use design systems is that nowadays, like with websites or just UI in general, like you can't get away with bad design nowadays. I think
No.
the general taste level of good design has grown since the
Yeah.
rise of digital art. What do you think about that?
Well, I think it's because we're so immersed in good design all the time, and people's IQ about it has definitely grown, myself included. Where I'm just guessing, but before good design only comes around once in a while in newspapers or magazines, but for the most part, people were just watching news television or getting tabloids on the street or word of mouth news. Nowadays you have your apps, you have all your delivery apps, you have your social media apps, you have your websites, and everyone's kind of pushing towards what gets people's attention the best, and that is good design. So so yeah, I think it definitely is that the taste level is definitely growing, but that's only because we're so immersed in it that people are learning more about what's good and what's not.
Mhm. No, that makes sense. And because design is all around us, I mean, I remember watching this YouTube video with the founder of Airbnb, Brian Chesky, and he went to a design school, and he started a hotel startup. But it's funny because he had that design background, and I remember hearing
Yeah.
his talk where he was saying that if you look around you, like everything was designed by somebody. Like this
Yeah.
mic was designed by somebody, the light that we're using, the webcam, the computer, this
Yeah.
table, this chair, like everything around us was
Someone had to
designed.
draw that thing first, and someone had to mold that thing first before it became whatever it is now.
Yeah, so it's so funny that there's this notion that art and design isn't important when
Yeah.
it's all around us.
Yeah, I think it's cool now actually that now that you mention it, it kind of comes to mind where they make videos on Facebook where they show you how mundane everyday things are made.
Mm.
Those like you scroll through Facebook like Crafty Panda or whatever. like, oh, so that's how a webcam is made. That's how a microphone is made. And it really, it kind of helps educate people as to, okay, so this microphone didn't just pop out of the ground and then and picked it up. Like someone had to draw what it looked like. Someone had to make a mold cast of the casing, and
Mhm.
then someone had to use literally like use their hands and a hammer and clay and everything to put it together first before moving it to production. So yeah, everything is designed, everything has been made by someone, and I think again, social media plays a big role in making people aware of that.
Yeah, it's. I think it's great that our design tolerance or sort of our design taste is growing, and that the digital revolution has lowered the barrier to entry for a lot of people. But now we're in this very new age, and a lot of people are calling it Web 3.0, where individuals
Meta.
are, yeah, the whole metaverse thing. But as individuals, we don't trust big tech anymore. We don't trust Facebook. We don't trust it, even though we still use it. We don't trust
Yeah.
them, like Facebook, Instagram, Meta, the whole metaverse, basically. So there has been this shift to things like blockchain or the creation of blockchain technology, which has
Hmm.
led to the creation of NFTs, or for the audience who doesn't know, it's
Ooh.
called non-fungible tokens. And for layman's terms, it's basically a way for you to prove ownership of digital pieces online. So,
Mhm.
what are your thoughts about how NFTs will change the art industry? And also, as a follow up, where do you see yourself fitting in this?
NFTs are honestly they're terrifying. Tell you the truth, I have so many friends who are doing well in this space, and I'm very proud of that. And it's good to see. But there's also been so many kind of negative things about it that honestly I have not done enough research to really speak on. But it's good to see that art has been growing into that space as well. That it's not gonna get left behind.
Hmm.
Um, you know how so many things get left behind because of the times, like how horses never had to worry about their jobs going away until they made cars, and so now
Yeah.
painters, you know, we don't have to worry about jobs going away because everything's digital now. Because now even traditional artists can make an NFT of their paintings,
Hmm.
and it will sell as much as a regular painting or even more. But it does scare me because it's so new, it's exciting, and it's so like there's not enough information. It's something you can't trust completely, at least personally for me.
Hmm.
But I do intend to kind of try it out in the
Yeah.
future. I keep telling people who ask me like, "Hey, do you want to do an NFT?" I'm like, yeah, but I gotta do more research, and then I never do because I just don't have enough time really to just really sit down, take notes. I know it's just like a YouTube video away, but I really want to understand it as much as possible before I jump into it.
Oh, that makes sense. But what do you think about the general concept of ownership in the digital world? Because I remember you were talking about going back to when you mentioned the difference between traditional art and the digital art. You can charge more for the traditional because there's more labor that comes into it,
Yeah.
and it's a lot harder to do. Whereas in digital, you can kind of just copy paste it, and like we mentioned earlier, the barrier to entry is very low, so the quality like so, do you think that NFTs will actually encourage people to be in the digital space more rather than the traditional? Or and actually, in fact, there are
Well,
some people who are blending them
yeah.
both. But what do you think
Well,
about that
I did
transition?
mention those things in the Jappy days, right?
Hmm.
That was like a year ago when it was brand new and no one understood it, and there was all these negative things about it. It's been like a year from then, and it's really changed up. Um, I do think that more people get into digital realm uh, as opposed to traditional, but more not because that's where it's really at. I mean, painters will always be painters. Street artists, muralists like myself, or of course NFTs are exciting and digital art is exciting,
Hmm.
but you can't take away that we love being out there in the hot sun,
Yeah.
climbing stuff, getting it done while smoke and fog and rain get all over us. But there's nothing really wrong about people getting into digital art. It's just another way for people to express themselves, which I'm very glad about. What I am worried about when you mentioned the copy pasting thing is not that digital artists will just copy paste their work together. There will always be There will always be people who do that. What I'm worried is that art theft, like they would download a picture off the internet, and I've seen it happen. Download a picture off the internet, put it up to one of those NFT sites, and then say, "This is mine."
Oh wow.
And it's so easy to do. So
Yeah.
what I mean by the copy pasting is
Mm.
that you can go to my Instagram, take a screenshot, and this has happened of one of my artworks. Go to like OpenSea or Rarible or one of those NFT sites, and just put it up. Pay for the Ethereum that it takes to make
Process
into
it.
an NFT,
Yeah.
yeah. And then just say, "Oh, this is mine," and then people
Wow.
start buying it, and then you will have no idea because no one will really tell you.
That's true.
That's what I'm worried about with the NFT thing.
Yeah, it
Um,
seems that there's because the barrier is so low to publish an NFT or produce an NFT.
yeah, that's
There seems to
worrisome.
be a lot of art theft. I mean, the fact that it's happened to you, like here,
Yeah, I saw
that's
like
crazy.
I saw like a drawing of mine on Amazon. Like some guy made a T-shirt. I'm like, what?
Wow,
And then it was just a screenshot of one of my Instagram, which okay, um, fine, I guess.
that's crazy.
I made sure to contact Amazon, but yeah, it's so much easier now in the digital realm to just kind of take someone's screenshots of their artwork, and then sell it somewhere else, and no one will be wiser
Hmm.
because it's so easy on these NFT sites to just do. When I tried it out myself, actually, I uploaded a picture.
Hmm.
I got ready to pay for the gas. They call it the gas, and then I was like, okay, it says here publish, and I was thinking, is it really that easy? And then I stopped. That's when I thought, now I'm worried because now, I can take a screenshot of your face right now, put
Hmm.
it on OpenSea, like, here we go, NFT of Joey Tuason's face,
Yeah,
100,000
$2.
Ethereum. Yeah, right. It's like that's what scares me about it, about
Yeah,
where it's going, and I'm hoping that the control
yeah.
regulations get better.
Maybe
And
a way to verify artists, a way to
yeah,
verify like this is the actual artist. I mean, they're already verifying the art, so might as well verify the
yeah.
actual artist in some way. But yeah,
Yeah, because
it's
up
still
till
very
now,
early.
I'm seeing like famous artists. They would post on Instagram like, "This NFT is not mine,"
Wow.
and then they're already big time famous. And like, someone just downloaded my picture and posted it, and these are fake. Don't buy these.
Well, that's
And
good.
so yeah,
It
it's
seems
just
like it's the smart move, at least from the outsider looking in, for you to wait it out just a little bit, and see if you want to do it in the future. What I find interesting though about the NFTs is that there's a recurring revenue for the artists, so you will continually get the royalties if it's sold again to another person, which is sort of unprecedented, right? In the art scene.
well, actually, now my legal management side is taking over. Um, I know that there's some law that allows don't take this is not legal advice. Everyone, don't listen to me. I'm just saying. Uh, I have to say that.
Yeah.
Where like an artwork sold, the original artist can always take a cut, and that's completely legal. I don't know if people still do that now, but it's in intellectual property rights, if I'm not
Mm.
mistaken. Um, but yeah, that's the cool thing about NFTs is that the original artist or whoever minted it originally, not always the artist, will always get a small cut of each buy, meaning as the artwork gets more and more valuable, they don't forget who used to own it.
Mhm.
So it's a little better because now in the fine art spaces, in my experiences, for example, I would sell a painting for like X amount,
Mhm.
and then if I, for example, get way bigger, like 5 years from now, the whoever bought that painting could sell it for X amount, and I would never see anything from that
Mm. Yeah.
um, regularly. But in NFTs, because it's a blockchain, they can always trace it back and be like, "You get a cut, you get a cut, you get a cut because
Yeah.
you made it,
It's
you
like
made it
Oprah.
popular."
You get a cut.
Yeah,
You get a cut.
everyone gets a cut because it's really because of the blockchain thing. So that's one of the positives, I think, if I'm not mistaken about that. Just so you know,
Yeah, it's
everyone.
very interesting to see how the rise of technology is shaping the art landscape. And just to give the audience a little bit of more of a background on sort of history of murals, and you might find this interesting. I would like to just sort of go over it very briefly, but I mean, murals have been around since the caveman times, right? Since we've
Those were pretty much
had walls,
murals. Yeah.
right? Since we've had the walls, we've had murals, and early civilization, like including the in Egypt, for example, they use hieroglyphics as part of their mode of communication. Like it was one of the earliest modes of communication. Then you have, of course, legendary pieces like the Last Supper by Leonardo da Vinci and the Sistine Chapel by Michelangelo. And then you fast forward to 1893 at the Chicago World Fair, where the leaders of nations are talking about how they can use public spaces to align with the country's aspirations. So, like you see, like the Arc de Triomphe in France, or you
I
see
didn't
like
know
all these
this.
skyscrapers like being built in the U.S. because they're super ambitious. Then in the 1920s, all of a sudden there was a resurgence of murals because before that it sort of died down. But there was a
Mhm.
resurgence of murals in the 1920s in the Mexican Revolution. And there were these three mural artists. I don't know their names, but I just like their nickname, Los Tres Grandes, or the three great
Oh,
ones.
interesting.
And they brought cubism to the mural space. So if you look at their artwork, it's like telling the story of the Mexican Revolution in walls or on walls, and it's cubism. It's pretty cool.
Mhm.
And these three artists were then commissioned by prominent families in the U.S., like the Rockefeller family. So what you said at the start of the podcast about it being reserved for these sort of well-off
Yeah, more
families or
well-to-do
yeah,
people.
society that aligns with the history. You know, the Rockefeller sort of commissioned these three, the Los Tres Grandes, to create murals in the U.S. and it started to sort of pick up in the U.S. And then boom, the Great Depression hit, and then President FDR created the Federal Art Project from 1935 to 1943, which very nicely actually helped fund visual art workers, and they created over
Oh,
2,500 murals. And this sort of caught on after World War II. Now heading into the 60s, 70s, artists now made murals more about cultural
yeah.
conversations, right? Because of what was happening in the scene. So like the Vietnam War, civil rights movement, and now the modern trend is like where murals are being more directly integrated with the architecture of buildings and entire
Mhm.
city blocks. So yeah, I just wanted to briefly go over that. Where do you think this is going, Jappy? Where do you think? I mean,
Wow.
obviously the whole NFT world,
Yeah.
we dabbled on that, but the fact that the way murals are used has been used to communicate things throughout the history of time. So in the start, it was just to communicate basic, words and hieroglyphics.
Yeah.
To now, where like in the 60s, 70s, it's about cultural conversations with the community. To
Mhm.
it being integrated with the entire designs of cities. Like, where do you see it going? Just in thinking out of the box here, or just thinking based on your experience, where do you see it going?
Wow. That is really tough because of pandemic, it's been hard to actually kind of keep it going.
Mm-hmm.
So, before pandemic, it was really growing. I could see it really taking off. All of so many artists are getting out doing murals. I've my friends and some people who just messaged me like, "Hey, I'm starting to do murals. Do you have any tips?" There was a lot. And then pandemic hit, and going outside was kind of not cool. Nowadays, I see it growing some more, but I'm not really sure where it can go. Not in a negative way,
Mm-hmm.
more like because of what we're experiencing now. It's kind of like little, it's kind of just leveled out for a while.
Yeah.
Um, and with the whole metaverse thing going on, maybe digital art. You know, I don't know what their plans are for that. They're trying to.
Yeah.
I've seen like the videos and stuff of like a whole cyber body of a person. Maybe I don't know, thinking outside the box. Maybe artwork in digital murals,
Yeah.
or now I'm thinking like, what if it could be like in Ready Player One? You see that
Yeah.
movie? Uh, where you just log into the metaverse or whatever, and then mural artists could make digital artwork for
Live.
the
Oh, that's a
metaverse
good
live.
idea, dude. That's a good
Like,
idea.
yeah, so instead of painting out here in the real world, just okay, put on the thing. I'm in the
Yeah.
metaverse. I'm gonna go to work, and then you're just painting a digital mural. But because of the endless possibilities of technology, you could do like a giant wall and have painted with rocket ships or whatever. I'm just thinking out the top of my head.
No, that makes sense though. That actually makes sense.
Yeah.
Or like you go to a wall, for example, it might be an empty wall, and then an AR will show up of a
Yeah.
mural. So there are many ways
Oh,
to
that's a lot more realistic than what I said.
both work, because if the whole point of the metaverse is the blending of both, like the blending of AR and VR with real life. It's really freaking scary, man, that it's coming
Yeah.
a lot sooner than maybe we anticipated. But
Also, a lot later than we anticipated. Because if you watch
yeah,
those movies like Back to the Future,
yeah,
like by the year 2015, we'll be flying cars. Like, no, in the year 2015,
yeah.
there's a great big amount of plastic in the ocean.
Yeah, I
It's
remember being like
always
in
happening.
2012, I was thinking about 2015 because of Back to the Future. I was like, shit, we only have 3 years left for the flying cars.
Yeah.
Like,
Where the
they gotta
flying
speed
cars
things
at?
up.
Why aren't we dressed like that yet? Like, what's
Yeah.
happening?
Why don't we have the
is
self-drying jackets?
all we have is climate change. But
Yeah, well, Steven Spielberg movies tend to paint a fantasy. Speaking of
happier
movies,
picture. Yeah.
you're a big Tarantino fan.
Well, yeah.
I mean, it seems to have you've done some work of his movies, and it seems that you've been influenced by him and his style of filmmaking in a way. So, actually, that was my question for you. Like, how has the Tarantino movies affected your personal style?
Ooh. Well, I don't do a lot of blood and gore because the first thing people think of when they think of Tarantino movies is, oh, it's bloody and there's gonna be feet. I don't do either of those.
Yeah.
I don't do either of those things, but I do love there's a whole pop culture vibe to his movies, especially the more recent ones, or not recently set ones. Like Pulp Fiction, Reservoir Dogs, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which is not recent but more recent than the other ones. And there's a real love for references and pop culture and stuff that I love. to
Easter
put with
eggs.
my work.
Yeah.
Easter eggs. I love doing that. Most of my work, especially if they're not like completely corporate
Mhm.
clients, I just get to add in a lot of like weird things in there, like weird pop culture references that just for me, just for the fans to see.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just love that in his movies he can openly talk about other movies, or he can talk about pop culture things like it's real life.
Yeah.
Like in Reservoir Dogs, when they opened the movie, it talked about Madonna's song like a virgin, or there's a lot of actual normal music being played in these movies. Like in Pulp Fiction, they dance to Chuck Berry songs.
Mhm.
So yeah, I just think that there's such a cool way of using pop culture in his movies that I like to do in my illustrations.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I didn't even notice that, but you're right. He does love those sort of pop culture references. He does love to add Easter eggs. He likes
Yeah.
sort of giving those homages to old film and old Hollywood. I mean, the whole movie of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was basically an homage to the
It's
old
about
Hollywood.
movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, he just wants to talk about the stuff that he likes. Like and he does movies based on stuff that he likes, like in Kill
Mhm.
Bill. Like I like Japanese samurai revenge stories, so I'm gonna make one.
Yeah.
And then the next movie is I like westerns, so I'm gonna make one.
Yeah.
He's unapologetic about the stuff that he wants to make, and that's something very inspiring to me because sometimes when you're an artist, especially now where it's all about likes, clicks, whatever, you start thinking, what will people want to see?
Mm.
But at the same time, you just want to be like, well, why don't you just make stuff that you want to make?
Mhm.
Just don't think about the likes too much. So there's that unapologetic. I like this, and I'm gonna make sure everyone knows it about his
Yeah.
movies. That's what I like.
Because sometimes people don't even know what they want to see, right? So the fact
Yeah.
that people like Tarantino will just decide to do something that they want to do, and then people start to be like, "Oh, I like that." It's the
Yeah.
opposite approach than thinking, "What do people like?" And then you're sort of
Yeah.
filtering your creation into a mold that might or might not be accepted by the public, right?
He makes
But
things like his style is. I'll make this popular. I'll make this cool. Not what's cool now. I'll make that. Yeah,
yeah,
I get that.
and another person who humanized Phil, well, in terms of comic books, and that's a big spoiler, but the way, because you mentioned how Tarantino kind of humanized the people by playing music, like regular music that we would be listening to, or talking about regular things that we'd be talking about.
Yeah.
Another person who did that very well was Stan Lee with Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And well, also with the Fantastic Four, because it was one of the first comics where he really made the superheroes not like this big shining armor
Yeah.
Superman, Batman, where they're perfect gods, to they're having arguments, as like regular
Their
people. The
family.
Fantastic Four, like a family, or
Yeah.
Spider-Man, who is having trouble, like paying for
His
his,
homework.
yeah, he has
He has
homework.
rent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are the main differences? I mean, that's one of them, but for like as a mural artist and as an illustrator, as a great designer, what are you, and as a comic book fan, what are the main stylistic differences between these sort of DC comics and Marvel comics?
Hmm. Um. That's well. If we're gonna talk comics, we'll just be here all day. So let's stick with the movies. Uh, I think the whole human side of it really makes a very big difference, and that's why Marvel films are more popular than DC films, because they'll show in Marvel films that, let's say, like WandaVision, like Wanda was watching American sitcoms
Hmm.
in when she was a kid, and that's the stuff that she likes, or she watches TV. They listen to music. Iron Man listens to AC/DC and Black Sabbath. Uh, Captain America, he has a list of stuff he wants to watch. It's just, oh, that's me. I can do that too. Like,
Yeah.
I love AC/DC. I'm totally Iron Man, or Spider Man and Ned. They were, let's build the Lego Death Star. So they make their characters feel like actual people with actual things that they love, and that's why those movies make so much more money and are so much
Yeah.
more popular. Like in DC films, I know they try, um, but it just doesn't seem like these are real people. Like, can you imagine? I know Bruce Wayne, like Ben Affleck's Bruce Wayne.
Hmm.
He's been through some tragedies, but do you really believe that all he does is like frown? No, because he does other human person stuff.
Yeah. He gets
Or
girls a lot too, Bruce Bruce Wayne.
yeah, in the comics, he's an actual person. Bruce Wayne,
Yeah.
even though he's just pretending to be a playboy, he does actual playboy person things.
Yeah.
But in the movies, you see Superman. You really believe all he does is, when he's not saving people, is cross his arms and look at the sky? No. That's why the
Where's
movies.
Lois? Where's
Yeah.
Lois?
That's why the movies don't work as much, because they don't really show a human side. They did really well in Wonder Woman. Like, Wonder Woman feels like a real person. Other than that, they're not very good at doing that yet. And that's
That's a
why
great
Marvel
point.
is winning. Yeah.
That's a great point. It's crazy that one decision from Stan Lee years and years ago is now
Yeah.
affecting the MCU today. And
Make your characters human, and that makes sense. Across all kind of creative platforms, is the best way to make things good is to connect with audiences.
mhm,
Like, if an audience feels like this work was made for me, or I understand this, they're gonna love it even more than just, oh, it's pretty.
yeah, that makes sense. So I wanted now to go a little bit into your story, but before that, I want to talk about tapping into the inner child, because your work is a perfect. I mean, seeing it physically was just like bam, like blasts of colors, and even talking to the guy who was giving the tour in the exhibit, he was like, "Parang bata, no?" Like, but in a good way. Like, parang
Yeah.
like you can really see the child spirit, like in this art. So it seems that you've used that, you've channeled that for your style, and then a lot of people have been saying that your work is basically like a big comic book, like a comic book page ripped out and put on a wall, right? So my question for you though is how do you tap into your inner child while making sure you progress as an adult or grow it as an adult?
Well, that's the trick. I don't try to be an adult. I try as much as possible not to be an adult. Um, no, but when it comes to artwork, because I view it really as play, especially when it's just my work. Like, clients aside, clients have their agendas, and I have to make income. Because so,
Mm,
you do the work that they need you to do, but based on what you would do as an artist. But when it comes to work that I like, it's just thinking about, like, like we're tapped back into the whole Tarantino thing. What do I like? What's fun? What would be cool to do?
yeah.
So, like, at the same time, have important messages, and I think that's the whole adult progression thing, is to say something important, but at the
Mm,
same time show the stuff that you like. So let's go with the show. It's not an ad for the show, but like the show was really about how social media has made us so indifferent. And I do that by using these characters who are black and white, and they look not as fun as the background, and kind of how we will just keep scrolling, and there's so much fun stuff on the internet, but we're always bored with it. Like, I've seen that TikTok before. Oh, I've seen that joke before. Or, oh, look, a great podcast. Swipe. Oh, look, great art. Swipe. And so that was kind of the idea behind the show. But at the same time, I thought, how do I execute this in the funnest way possible? Oh, okay, just go crazy. Just do whatever was fun for me. So it's a mixture of wanting to say something important or wanting to express something important, but also tapping into what you love and what makes sense to you. And that's how I kind of want to do things.
Yeah, finding that balance between telling an important message or communicating an important message, but also not letting it sacrifice your personal style and how you want to execute it. And going back to what you said about the show, can you expound a little bit on the skateboard one? Because I remember watching the Jappy Days one, the Jappy Days live show you used to have, and you were mentioning that I wanna paint the skateboard. I wanna paint the skateboard, and it finally happened. Yeah, so what is that process like, creating that skateboard piece of art?
Well, again, it was just really about what made sense to me. It was fun. You can buy skateboards now online on Lazada or Shopee or whatever. So it's so much easier than before. Before I had to like buy a skateboard and then use it for a good amount of time before I think, okay, it's time to paint this. Because it's like $1,000 for a new deck.
Yeah.
But yeah, the idea behind that was really just to have fun with it. The artwork was like a fight cloud, and I thought it would be interesting to both show the message that I want, which is the whole disconnection of social media with people through skateboard decks, which is something I love, and with a theme, with a kind of artwork style that I like, which is more cartoony and all that. So that's where it all kind of converges. The important message, which was how everything's disconnected, which means different art decks, one big artwork, but on different things. And I wanted it to look like you're watching a fight on, like a conflict on social media through stories where it's just tap. So it's one big story, but it's one big message, one big fight, just kind of separated into 4 different stories, and you're just there like kind of as the impartial viewer, like, oh, okay, I'm watching like someone attack someone. I'm watching some very terrible tragedy somewhere, but I'm just viewing it through Instagram stories. That's the idea of the artwork.
That's fantastic, man. And it really showed. And even with the other two, where it was just one guy, and then they were painting that was a pair. And was that you in the painting?
Oh, I use my face a lot.
Okay.
You just use mirrors, and you're like, okay, that's what people look like, but sometimes it looks like me.
Yeah, you gotta use what you have,
Yeah.
But yeah, again, fantastic. And I'll flash it up here so that the audience can see what it looks like. And just so you know, those 2 works down there that you see below are made by Jappy as well. So he's made it to EDSA. But
someday.
So I wanted to ask you a little bit about your story, right? So you mentioned that in the Jappy Days Live, you wanted to be a voice actor at one point.
Oh no! Wow,
was that a legit endeavor of yours, or like a legit thought, like, Mom, I want to be a voice actor?
Well, I wouldn't say like I would have asked my mom, like, please trust me on this. I'm gonna be a great voice actor. I just like, I just when I talk and how I like to do characters. It's been a big part of like me. I grew up doing some sort of musical theater when I was in high school.
Okay.
There's like a cool performativeness that I like, and so when it comes to the voice acting, because I love cartoons and all that, like, hey, maybe someday I could be a voice actor. But of course, it didn't work out.
But do you see that translating to the stuff that you're doing now? Because in a way, you're being a voice, or you're impersonating someone's voice through murals. Let's say with a client, like you're getting what they have to say or what their voices, and you're translating it into visual art. So in a way, like that concept or the principle of it is still there. Like for example, I took up hotel in college, and I knew that I didn't want to work in a hotel. But what did I like about it? I like the fact that you can talk to people and communicate with people, and you can call them a guest. I'm like, oh wait, that's a podcast. So I
Yeah.
decided to do that on my spare time. So do you see that connection, or was it, or is there so sort of like no? Am I just thinking a little too hard here?
Hmm. I mean, I guess you could say that there is some sort of connection between this. You know, there's always going to be like a convergence of your interest points.
Mm-hmm.
So when it came to like that, like just being expressive and kind of being more animated and just wanting to give kind of lend my voice, my talents to something else, it kind of makes sense. Yeah, that you could definitely connect that. I am interested in being animated. I'm interested in breathing life into something, and then I'm also interested in painting, and so it just makes the two.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I think that's important. Like, well, first of all, being aware of your interest, and
Yeah.
then seeing how they can intersect. Like, for example, I was watching this YouTube video about work-life balance, and how it's not real. Um,
Hmm.
but what was interesting about the talk, I don't know if you heard of the YouTube channel The Future. Um,
No, I don't think
they're
so.
FUTUR. It's they talk a lot about design and illustration. I think you might find it interesting actually. But what the guy was talking about
Oh
was
wait, I
work
think I've
life
heard of it. Yeah.
integration.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what do you, Chris Do, the
Yeah,
also
Chris
bald,
Do.
yeah,
That's a guy I know. That's a guy I know.
yeah,
Chris Do.
Chris
Yeah.
Do, yeah, he was talking about how can you like work life integration. So like in my life, these are the things that I actually get joy from, and then what are the things that I can get paid for? What are the things that can bring value into society? And then you're sort of connecting the dots. So like for you, it was, you've always been drawing like since you were a kid. It was
Hmm.
a constant thing of your life, and then you know maybe the voice acting thing was a little side detour, but the concept of like in performing like in high school, you mentioned all these experiences and influences have translated into
Yeah.
who Jappy is today, and it is affecting a lot of your work.
Yeah.
So yeah, can you speak more on basically that process of when things finally when you wanted to be a pro at this, or when you decided that I want to become a registered freelancer,
Okay.
that moment, did you feel, because in your Jappy Days live you talk about the importance of registering yourself
Yeah.
as a freelancer. So at that moment, did you start to take your craft even more seriously?
Um. No, not at the point of registration that I take it more seriously.
Mm-hmm.
It was really when I thought that this could actually be something, which was back in college, uh, because I've been working doing this since I was in college in La Salle, and at first it was just all commissions, like my friends, hey, could you do my project, or I would join like sticker conventions, or just sell my work, and then
Yeah.
I started doing murals, and then once I started getting paid for murals, I thought this could be a job.
Mm-hmm.
And it was when I got one of my first big clients that I thought this could be my future, and that's when I really started to say, I'm gonna double down on this and just take this as seriously as possible because I want to do this. The whole registration thing was really just a formality because um, it wasn't because I gotta register to feel like I'm something. No, it was more like I have to register so that
Yeah.
clients can pay me faster. Uh, like
And you can get clients who wouldn't have
yeah,
gotten you if you weren't registered.
because in the Philippines, well, anywhere, any industry, but in the Philippines, big companies want you to be registered so that they could get receipts from you, and that their BIR and their accounting all make sense in the end. So
Mhm.
that's the only reason why they want that, especially the bigger clients. But yeah, I didn't take it seriously. I didn't start taking it seriously when I registered. I started taking it seriously basically when I began, like when I decided I want to do this. Like,
Mhm.
if you're gonna do this, do it right, and that's what I did.
So it only sort of confirmed what was already there. It like put it on paper, in a way.
A little bit. Like yeah. Now I have a little piece of paper that says I'm official.
I'm employed. Yeah.
I pay taxes. I
Yeah.
contribute. Like yeah, there. That's the only thing it does. Like it makes me have to pay taxes.
And another thing you mentioned in your talks was figuring out your price, you know, and I think for a lot of freelancers out there, it's hard for them to really figure out what to charge people sometimes. And you came up with this equation: materials plus time plus hazard fee or logistics plus deadline plus usage, meaning like if they're going to sell it or not,
Yeah, it's a lot of
plus
pluses.
your value, all caps, your value.
Hmm.
Now, all the stuff before that we can kind of get, but how does one determine what their value is in a sort of practical way?
Okay, this has always been really tough. Until now, I get asked this, and it's just really tough to kind of gauge value, especially like personal value.
Mhm.
I think you just have to be real with yourself, and it's not always like the easiest thing to hear, or the easiest thing to kind of admit. Like just just sit down with yourself and say where are you and how much are you really worth, not objectively but subjectively, or not subjectively but objectively.
Yeah.
When I was starting out, I would ask, of course, I would ask my peers, like, hey, how much is this? Like, I just really want to know. Or I asked people who knew how to do that. And of course, they were very helpful. Like, this is the range. I'm not going to tell you what it is exactly, but this is the range.
Mm.
Um, I thought, okay. And then I kind of just figured it out, like, their ranges change because of where they are in their careers. So when I started out,
Mhm.
I'm like, okay, let's be real with yourself. No bullshit. Chappy, where are you? Okay.
Mhm.
I'm in college right now. I've only done like 2 to 3 murals. I don't exactly know what I'm doing, so I'm gonna price it this much. This is the value I can see in my work. So I think it's important, one, to have a reference point. So ask your peers. I don't think it's that too far fetched to go like, hey, how much should I price?
Mm.
Um,
At least the range.
yeah, give me a range, because like, so you have a reference point. Like,
Yeah.
let's say I asked someone who was way up here, and then I asked someone who was a little closer to my level. Okay, that's kind of where I should be. That's kind of my reference points, and this is where I am.
Mhm.
So one is very important to have a reference point. Ask your peers, ask your friends, or if you know anyone who's been in the industry long enough, ask them, and then be real with yourself. Like,
Mhm.
okay, I'm not being mean to myself, but okay, maybe I'm not that good yet, and I should price this much.
That makes sense. It's all about like figuring out where you fall in that range with your skill level and where you
Yeah,
are at your point in the career.
yeah,
Ah, that makes a lot of sense. But for you, as you were growing, so you started off selling stickers in 2014.
hmm,
People asked you to do murals here and there. You started doing it for family businesses, titas, our aunts and
yeah.
uncles for the
Not my
international listeners.
titas,
Yeah,
someone
but
else's.
that's a huge market, though. I think the Tita market is huge. In fact, I was
Yeah,
thinking of coming up with just a simple business where it's just called websites for titas, and you just make websites for
yeah.
titas, and you only deal with titas. Like, sorry if you're not
Do you have
40
any
and below.
kids? Yes, you're not Tita, you're a mom. Do you have any sisters? Because they could work. No.
No, exactly. You just make it exclusive for titas.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the point. Like, so you grew like with your family members or friends who have family members and all that. But at what point? Because this is just my frame of reference for somebody who doesn't know anything about art.
Okay.
Like, I'm thinking like as when you get your first scaffolding as a mural artist, like you're kind of just like, oh yeah, ooh, I got my first scaffolding. Like, when was that point for you that when you got your first
It's
scaffolding?
my first scaffolding. Like pop in the cherry, first scaffolding. Well, I did start making murals for very small places, for like businesses of people's families that I knew. But they were very small. They were like, oh, I can just stand on a chair. I did a mural in Maginhawa, and that was the first scaffolding project. Not because it was very big, but because the wall was high, and I
Mm-hmm.
had no idea how to get scaffolding, so I had to kind of like ask around. Anyone who has scaffolding? And like, yeah, I do. And then I had to ask, do you know anyone who has a truck so I could put the scaffolding for my other friend? So it was really a lot of kind of dragging things together, and it was like at a point where I thought, before you just start thinking, oh, okay, when a muralist has their shit together, they know exactly where to get scaffolding, or they have their own resources now, or they just have it.
Mm-hmm.
But no, that's when I really learned, like, when you're doing this thing, you're running your own business, you're doing your own thing, you have to scrape things together
Yeah.
to make it work. You don't always have the answers. You don't just snap your fingers and there it is, because I'm a muralist. Give me my scaffolding. So I had to get that scaffolding. I had to drag it over to the project. I had to set it up myself. I had no idea how to do that, but it's all part of the learning process. So that moment, that oh my god, my first scaffolding moment, wasn't really more of a triumph. Yes, it was like,
Mm-hmm.
oh yeah, I'm doing murals that need scaffoldings, but it was more like, this is the reality of it, and it's a great experience to kind of be grounded and learn that it's not always going to be, oh, it's right
Provided
there. Yeah, it's not just provided. If a client can't provide it, but you have an agreement with them, you have to find a way to
legally.
make it work. Yeah, yeah, legally, of course.
Yeah, legally, you gotta find a way to make it work.
Yeah,
And you do have that legal background. For people who don't know, Jappy started off in UST Fine Arts, and then he moved to LaSalle to take up legal management. So, very interesting turn of events there. Can I ask you, if you don't mind, what
yeah.
was it about the UST program that just
Ooh.
didn't work for you? Was it because this thing that you had that was so playful for you is now put in a formal setting? Was that it?
Oh, okay. Well, sorry, UST, and sorry to my blockmates who might be listening to this. Um, no, it was a mix and match of a lot of things. One was a lot of burnout. Um, a lot of burnout. Like you said, like, just this thing that I loved immensely get turned into work was very hard for me to accept. Um, Also, there's this disenchantment with art school, just being there and realizing that you're not the only, because when you're an artist, and I came from a smaller high school, when you're doing that, you're saying, I'm one of the only people who does this here. I must be amazing. Uh,
Yeah.
then you get that college where everyone's doing it, you're like, oh, I'm not amazing at all.
Yeah.
So you
Just
get
tiny fish in the
disenchanted with
sea.
it. Yeah, you get disenchanted with, like, maybe art wasn't as, I'm not as talented, or I'm not as good as I really thought I was.
Mhm.
Also, there was, like, some pressures, of course, family pressures and stuff. Like, oh, you're gonna do art, because again, it was at a time where it wasn't really that big a deal in
Yeah.
the world. So yeah, it was a mixture of, like, pressures, disenchantment, and straight up burnout with homework, teachers, and just peer pressure and all that. It got really tough. So I said, maybe I'm not cut out for it.
So when you moved to LaSalle, because I mean, you've basically spent more time in the sort of educational side of things. You spent more time with legal management than fine
Yeah.
arts. So it's in a way more ingrained in you educationally, not
Yep.
naturally. Um, so because you've had this background in legal management, you have this sort of good balance between the right brain, the creative side, and the left brain, the logic side. And so you can sort of, you really know your contracts well, you know how to not get scammed, you can call out client BS.
Hmm.
So what advice would you give artists, creatives, freelancers who tend to lean a little bit too much on the right side?
Well, honestly, just do your homework, do your research. It's very important uh, to kind of know these things, and it was
Mhm.
a big advantage for me to know them beforehand. Like, because legal management is not just legal stuff, but it's a lot of business stuff. It's a lot of, it's business school, so it's a lot of accounting, a lot of math, a lot of how to manage this, how to manage that, how to talk to clients, how to, whatever.
Mhm.
Um, and of course, if you're a little bit too much on the right side, where you're just, I'm an artist, I don't need to know these things. It's gonna be tougher for you down the line, especially if you want to make this into a real business practice. When you have kind of like a closed mindset on learning the business side of things, the legal side of things,
Mhm.
then you really won't grow. In my opinion, you really won't grow.
The business of art.
Yeah, it's just, you have to learn the business of anything you're in to make
Mhm.
it successful. You can be a very famous singer, but if you don't understand the market, you don't understand the business of making music, you're not gonna become a star.
Mhm.
In my opinion. So yeah, for creatives who are a little too much on the I'm an artist, I don't need to know any of those things, reconsider. Please do your research. Just Google the stuff. It's all there. It's everything's online. Learn what you can because it will help you down the line if you really want to make this thrive in the long term.
And after your 4 years in LaSalle, you started doing your mural work. Was there a point where you're like, should I go to law school?
Yeah.
Okay.
Um,
So,
well, there was a point I actually had the application forms and I had like recommendation letters written by my professors at LaSalle, and I really wanted to do that. And I was also working on commissions at the same time, just doing it. But it just came to a point where it was like, again, I just told myself, I want this to work more than anything in the world, and I can't be distracted by things like law school. If I go to law school, it's done.
mm,
Because I'm not the type of guy to half-ass things. So if I go to law school, I can't just half-ass law school then do art things on the side. I can't do art things on the side, art things, and then half-assed and then go to law school. Both those two things require an intense amount of dedication to make work, and I had to choose
mm.
one. Um, so I chose what I thought I loved more, and that's it.
And as you build your, and it was a great decision, by the way, might I say. But
Thank you.
as you built your experience with murals, you got more clients. Now you have enough to afford to go to the school that you originally wanted to go to, which was the School of Visual Arts
Yeah.
in New York. So you finally got to go there. What was that experience like? Because now you're finally in a city where they acknowledge the value of creativity, like what we were talking about before. What is that like for you?
It was really surreal because when I was in college, I would ask my folks, like, hey, I want to do this school. But of course, nothing against them. They work very hard. We're a very modest family.
Mm,
But they just said, we can't afford to do it. Because, of course, going to school in New York is really just not attainable for most people, really.
mm,
And you got to think about where you're going to live and all that. So I just kind of dreamt of it. Like, even up to I was working already, I graduated from DLSU. I just kind of dreamt of it. And then the opportunity came where there was like a residency program and I could join it and it's this much. And I could afford to put myself in that, to apply and to be part of that with the money I made making art. And it was kind of really surreal. That's when it really hit me a little bit more that you're making your dreams come true.
mm,
The work you're doing has made it possible for you to make your childhood dreams come true.
mm.
So just being there and being in New York and being in School of Visual Arts, even if for just a 2 month period, a 2 month program, was just like a dream come true. Like I made this happen for myself, which made it even like I would say
More sweet.
yeah, much much more sweeter. Um, Again, nothing against my folks or anything. It was just really such a great kind of moment to be like I did this for myself and I'm here
That is a
through
difficult
art.
conversation to have with your parents, though, because I can imagine, obviously, any creative endeavor, parents are naturally scared to let their children wander in, because it's like you said, it's a dark path for a lot of people. But what advice would you give to a kid, let's say, or someone in high school who they know that they want to do something artistic, but they have to have that difficult conversation
Yeah.
with their parents? How would you approach that?
Well, the dark path really is the conversation. Um, I always believe that if you really want something to really work and you're lucky enough to get the chance to do it, it will work out if you put the work in.
Mhm.
But the first step is that conversation with your parents. Um, my advice really is to just be honest with them, and again, be honest with yourself. A lot of people will kind of avoid the painful conversation with yourselves about where you are and your capabilities. But really be honest with yourself. Like, is this something I'm prepared to work my ass off for? Is this something
Yeah.
I'm prepared to dive into? Is this something I'm prepared to, lose sleep over and tear my hair out and just go crazy?
Mhm.
Um, and if you really are honest with yourself and you really know that you want to do that, if just go to your parents and tell them that, like, because I'll just tell you guys what I did. Like they're asking me all the time, "Hey, when are you gonna get a job? When are you gonna go to law school?" I'm like, I'm doing this. I'm making money. I have a job. But of course, they were worried. Of course,
Yeah.
um, like any good parents are. You know, and again, we're very modest background, so more working class, right? So to them, having a job is number one, very important. And to them, I just told them, this is my job. I want to sit down with them and tell them, give me 1 year. 1 year. Do not ask me to get a job. Don't ask me to do anything. 1 year. And if I can't make this sustainable in that year, I'll do it. I'll get a job. I'll apply to law
Mm.
school. I'll find a way. But I want you guys to trust me that I know what I'm doing. And as soon as it really got to the level where I was doing like 3, 4 clients a month, and they saw me like I was coming home with new shoes all the time and stuff. They're just like, okay, Jappy's doing well, no questions. Sometimes your
Yeah.
parents will doubt, but because they care about you, it's not like they're
Yeah.
we don't want you
There's
to be
no
an
bad
artist
intentions.
because it's dumb. Art is dumb. They're gonna say that, but
Mm.
if you can prove to them that you're gonna be okay, your parents just want you to be okay. If you can prove to them that you're gonna be okay and that you know what you're doing, you have a good head on your shoulders. Let them know that and tell them to trust you, and they'll be hopefully they'll be okay with that.
Mhm. All right. So that's a very good point. I think that difficult conversation, and you mentioned also about having that difficult conversation with yourself first. I think that's
Yeah.
very important, because if you don't have that conversation with yourself first, and the conversation with your parents will be a little bit more messy.
Yeah, because
Um,
you have to show them how confident you are in what you want to get done.
yeah,
Um,
and that you're gonna put in the work.
yeah,
You know,
they
you're
have to
not
know
gonna be.
that.
You have to and see it. So, very good point.
Mhm.
I wanted to ask you now, last two questions here. How do you remove your ego from your art? Because that seems to be something that you've touched on before,
Mhm.
and I think it's very important in any field, really, in business, in sports. The importance of removing your ego from your work, and for you specifically for your art. How do you personally do that?
Well, it's an ongoing thing always because well, not to toot horns, but I'm at a level where I can say I've made good progress. See, that's already me trying to get the ego flaring up. But like I'm at a point where I did some good work and I've made some sort of name for myself. So there's always kind of the tendency for your ego to be like, you're great, you're amazing, you deserve everything in the world. Which of course is not true. You always have to constantly push that down, because it will always keep happening. Um, I read this book, "Ego is the Enemy" by Ryan Holiday. At the
Great
end,
book.
I love that book. I read it like twice a year. I haven't read it. So the end of it was really like you can practice all these tips for destroying your ego. You can do all that, but you don't think that one read through and you're good for life. He says you always have to be sweeping. You always have to be doing it. And so for me, I always try to check my ego, especially when projects come in where like um, let's say the other day like there's an open call for like muralists somewhere. And so I saw it on Facebook, like it was a sponsored post on Facebook. I was like, okay. My ego was telling me, dude, you're way too big to be answering open calls on Facebook.
Mm,
But in my heart, I was like, who who the hell told you that you're too big to answer open calls on Facebook? Isn't that how you started? Answering open calls, taking every other chance you could get to paint murals.
mhm.
So I stamped that down and I answered the open call. I emailed in my entry. Um, and that was just another exercise for me to be like, yes, the tendencies will come up, the thoughts will come up that your ego will start feeding you all these things like you're good, you're too good for this, or you should be asking for more than what they're giving uh, because you deserve way more than you actually deserve. Then you just have to, again, like we said earlier, you have to be self-aware with that. Yeah, constantly have to be self-aware with your ego, kind of know what's happening, know what you're thinking, and talk to yourself about it, meditate on that. So yeah, there. It's just something I do all the time is whenever I think something, I apply it to, is this right or is this just ego talking?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That makes sense. And there's that inflated ego, but there's also that deflated ego to contrast that, where you have very low self-esteem and you're like, oh, I can't. But you might actually be a very good artist. Like Bobby Lee is a very famous comedian, very
Yeah.
good comedian, but every time he goes on stage, he's like, oh, I can't. But everybody knows he's gonna kill.
I think that's his
Everyone,
character though. Like, hey, I'm Bobby Lee.
yeah,
I was on Mad TV, and I'm kind of like this shy type guy. But I
that might be
guess,
part of the play. Yeah,
yeah, could be his character.
there is that. Yeah, but that deflated ego. But I mean, they're both terrible because they both stop you at your tracks or
Yeah.
prevent you from seeing things. Whether you might your ego might make you think that you're a lot better, and like what you said, can you're not. I'm not. This is not worthy of my time anymore.
Yeah.
Or it can be the other side where you're like, oh, I'm not good enough to even answer this open call.
Yeah.
So it's about finding
You gotta
that
find a good
balance
balance.
there,
Yeah.
and that's great. And the last thing I wanted to ask you, which I found sort of the most interesting about your mindset to the creative process. You obviously give everything into the projects that you do, and we know that that's a given, that that's what you're supposed to do with any project. But what I find sort of unique and interesting about your mentality is that, well, after it's done, so you pause and you appreciate it for a second,
I
just a
read it.
second, right? And then after you sort of forget about, or you almost dislike it, or you start to notice the flaws at least. And you just end up focusing on what's next. Can you talk to me about that latter part? Because I think makes you a little bit unique compared to other people who sort of linger on their artwork for years.
Okay. Well, I I just sum it up by this line from The Great Gatsby, the movie, where Leonardo says, "My life has to be like this, always going up." Um, and that's just how I also want to think about things. Where like, yes, I'm doing this, and I'm proud of what I've done, but what's next? Where can I go from here? What things can I improve on? How could I have done this better? And then apply it to the next thing. That's why when I do projects, I say that people ask, "What's your favorite project?" I always say, "The one I'm working on now,"
Mhm.
because those are the ones you have to really give all your heart and soul into. So you have to love it with all you got. Just really do your best at it. And then what they'll ask, "What's your least favorite project?" The last one I did, like the very recent one. Because then when you're done with
That's
it,
gold.
yeah, when you're done and you submit it, you're like, "Here you go, client, it's all yours." And then you step back, you're like, this is good. Except, and then you start seeing flaws here, flaws there, flaws everywhere. You're like, I gotta fix that for the next one. So I look forward to what's next, and then I just say, whatever you did wrong that time, do better here. And then you fix that. So I want to make sure that my progression, at least just personally, I don't know how other people view my artwork, but just personally, I want to know and feel that my progression is upwards, slow, continuous trend upwards. That's why I'm always focused on what's next, and that's why I can't bear to look at my work when it's done. Like, oh, it's done. All right, what's next on the agenda? Because I just want to do better for the next one. I'm excited
Yeah.
to get to the next one.
So in a way, your last work kind of propels you to your next, because you hold those mistakes in the back of your mind, and you're like, okay, I got to improve on this, this, and this. And then when that next project hits, you're extra excited because you know that there are these certain things that you can improve on. And
Mhm.
I mean, from an outsider looking in, it seems like you do get a kick out of that progression.
Yeah, it's always just my favorite thing about following your dreams and following your career is that you hold your improvement. You're responsible for everything. Everything about your career is your responsibility when you're following your dreams, when you're following your passions. And so I just love the fact that I can control how I progress. Not necessarily how much I progress, but how I choose to move forward is my decision. Um, so that's why when I think about the next thing, I'm always like, it has to be better than the last thing. You can never regress. Don't do that. That's not how we want to do things. Find ways to get better, even small things, and then apply that to the next one, because you can control that.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, thank you so much for your time. I'm
Oh,
sure there was a
yeah.
lot of golden nuggets that the freelance community and my listeners can learn from. And again, thank you so much for doing your part in making the freelance, the creative scene, the art scene here in the Philippines a little bit better. And I'm sure your next project will be a little bit better than your last one.
I hope so.
Thank you so much, Jappy. It
Thanks,
was a
Joey.
blast.
All right. Thanks, man.